This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, we now bring you a discussion on new indicators of backwardness of states. The participants are Professor Kamal Nayan Kabra, Institute of Social Sciences, and Professor Shivaji Sarkar, Economic Analyst.
The Raghuram Rajan Panel Committee on Composite Development Index of States have given recommendations for allocating funds to their states, and it has decided that there should be two basic criteria. One, the development needs of the states, and the performance on development parameters of the states. The Raghuram Rajan Committee also decided on a multi-dimensional index for deciding on the various states and putting them in different development categories. Basically, many of the things it has based on the NSSO recommendations and survey reports. Mr. Kabra, what we have seen is that this time they have decided on the basic parameters for development, and in that category, states scoring 0.6 and above will be in the least developed category. 0.6 to 0.4 will be called less developed, and the rest is relatively developed. Now, the way the committee has functioned, of course, as anyone does a good job, the committee has given a basic parameter for deciding on allocations to the states on the basis of this underdevelopment. This is something that the Finance Commission also has been doing, but the committee has gone beyond it and perhaps also set the basic standards for the next Finance Commission to decide on. Now, how do you see this, the functioning of this committee?
Dr. Sarkar, you have very rightly said that this committee was given a task which was to end either ad hocism or discretion in statutory grants are decided by the Finance Commission. But discretionary grants for development is the Planning Commission's grant. There was a lot of controversy. Some states were classified as special category states, and there was a clamor. So that once for all, an objective criteria based on facts which are fully authentic, or as authentic that no better authentic data are available based on that. And it has really remarkable work, really path-breaking work. Excessive emphasis on state at the national level, the national per capita income, and at the state level on states' domestic products on a per capita basis. Now, you see that degree of development and underdevelopment as it bears on the living conditions and welfare of the people as well as their development potential is not reflected by GDP, except it just affects savings rate primarily. So that here you have an example that 10 indices which they have taken and made a composite index is a really remarkable thing in what you give the overall development paradigm and theory. It has mentioned per capita and the poverty line together. That means per capita availability of various goods to the people as they consume, plus the extent to which the poor are there, and to which you combine very important factor which is historically given, the proportion of SC and ST, people who are Dalits or considered Dalits. Now, this is something. Then also the criteria with respect to the development potential or capabilities of the people in terms of health, education, household amenities. These are very important things. How a person is living, what is the degree of welfare, what is the level of participation, and the potential for development capacity building. This is something which is remarkable, goes beyond this in two other aspects. One is that all the authentic data which are collected by agencies, which are generally considered impeccable, you made use of. Their weights have been determined. And third very important thing is that criteria for allocation, that each state will get 0.3% as a basic grant out of the total discretionary funds. Then the remaining 90 plus that remains, 75% will be given on the basis of this threefold classification. Clarify this one point. Lest people develop a vested interest in remaining backward and not do anything, or you reward what is called lack of performance and punish the performance. Performance criteria has also been included. That means all the diverse conflicting views which states used to mention, Andhra Pradesh earlier mentioned, that well, if you perform well, have you to be penalized and get less. So all the political concerns, all the social concerns, all the economic concerns, and most important of all, that the special categories is abolished. These three categories which you also correctly mentioned takes care of that. So that, for example, takes him, some state is far off. Now far off from where? Why do you take that Delhi is the center and will remain perpetually? Connectivity has to be in our country intra-regional, regional, and the result of it is, and that is most significant, Odisha, which is considered the most backward now, or the least developed, in per capita income terms, it is much higher than Bihar. It is higher than a couple of other states. Take the case of Meghalaya. Meghalaya is least developed category, but its per capita income is higher than a number of states. Some states where there is a lot of concentration of economic activity historically on account of the process of development, the role of corporate sector there has their offices and so on. So I think it is a very balanced budget and holds a lesson for the country that in our planning process at the national level, some such criteria should be used.
Very rightly said. This has set the basic standards for how to develop out of the underdeveloped states. That is the
scientific and socially
responsibly, and using the basic standards that were available within the short time frame that it was given, and it has of course done a commendable job in that. There is a variation that there must be 0.3% for each state, but it also says that 8.4% of the funds allocated should be from the basic fixed allocation. That means 8.4% of whatever the central fund is, that must be allocated equally to all the states. Of the rest of the 91.6%, it says 3/4 allocation should be based on need, and 1/4 allocation should be based on the performance. So it sets the basic criteria, and this is where some anomalies were there in the Finance Commission recommendation. There's also the Planning Commission methodology that was being used.
Finance Commission's task is a little different.
But still, when it comes to allocation, the mismatch was there, and mismatch as per this committee is also from 0% to 16.4%. So there was a large variation in that. So now with this kind of methodology, the variation can be reduced to a large extent, and the states that have been grumbling of getting less and less, now at least to some extent they can be taken care of.
I think there are two things. The committee, on the basis of this criteria, they have given which state will lose, which state will gain. And there will be, it's not a fixed forever. There's a periodicity that has been given, that the data should be reviewed so that better performance states may move. And in a federal polity, national economy with large regional variations, there's two important implications. One is that regional inequalities in our model are built in. Here is a mechanism that if you use it, it will tend to move towards our planning process, towards reduction of regional disparities. This is a very significant long-term implication. The second thing, which I think is no less important, is that in a country with national planning, no state has a model of development which is different from others except historical facts. For example, Kerala, its social development indicators are very high, and it's even compared with the international level it is compared, right? Similarly, there are states which are known for their backwardness for a variety of historical and contemporary reasons. For example, freight equalization that was introduced, which discriminated against the eastern states which had better resource endowment. But because of the fact that states inherited a large urban population, for example, large industrial base, large entrepreneurial base, now those states today are clamoring that they are among the top, while their social indicators are poor. This, for example, the glaring case in the current context is that of Gujarat. Now, Gujarat in this objective criteria comes close to Jammu and Kashmir, which is riddled with so many special problems. Just 1 point difference is there between the two. That means development is a holistic exercise, not connected with what concessions you give to the industrial houses, the advantage that they give. Because they control media, they start praising you sky high. This is very significant in the current political economic context.
Mr. Kabra, actually, in the three categories that they have done, Gujarat comes in the second, the less developed, and it is clubbed with Manipur, West Bengal, Mizoram, Himachal, Sikkim, Tripura, Nagaland, and Karnataka and Jammu and Kashmir, as you have mentioned. So, this parameter, when we talk of Gujarat or many other states or even Maharashtra, we take the key state capitals or the key economic activity places, and on the basis of that we have been trying to measure the development process.
That is GDP based actually. The GDP based things and critical things from development point of view.
GDP and the show window process.
Show window, I tell you, for example, a state organizes to get FDI. So conferences are called. Now, take the case of Gujarat. How many? Only 3% were implemented. And then, most important of all, what happens to the workers? What happens to the farmers? What happens to the land? What happens to social indicators? On scientific grounds, on social grounds, on political grounds, on economic grounds, I would assert very strongly that please challenge these 10 criteria and say what is wrong and the data. The making political noise doesn't make a difference. Critical thing is that please be scientific, be reasonable, feed people with correct information and then get people's verdict. From this point of view, and also putting unnecessary pressure on the state and the government. We are in an era of coalitions. Any political group which has a larger regional clout can put unnecessary pressure on the state government and get away with a larger share at the cost of... In economics, there's no free lunch. If I get more, you will get less.
Absolutely. But there is one thing that also this panel speaks of, that there is virtually no state which is really developed. It only says the maximum highest category is relatively developed.
No, but
that is an indicator that the country needs to do a lot.
Development is a multi-dimensional social, economic, political, cultural phenomena. And here only one-dimensionality, that how many corporates come here and praise you. And at what cost? For example, take the case of, I think it will be relevant, but the way Nano has been attracted away by giving huge concessions. It doesn't make sense.
But among, you can say, the relatively development in our terms, you can say it is also the most developed that is in the country. There are Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Goa, Haryana, Uttarakhand and Maharashtra. These are the few states.
Punjab, ecologically, the way the soil has been destroyed, water has been depleted. So I think this takes, if anything to be added, I would say that environmental factor should have been added to it, which is more or less missing at the moment. Interest of the future generations and society as a whole. Environment is not a current affair, it's a long-term sustainability related factor.
What you have said is right. What the committee has done, it has gone virtually. It has given a very limited mandate. Initially, if you see...
Task was limited.
Very limited task.
Discretionary funds of the Planning Commission, how to allocate them objectively and reasonably. Which it has done perfectly well.
As in the dissent note, one of the members has really mentioned, committee has really done a job. But the way the committee has done and the way it has gone into it, there has also been some criticism of it, that why it has based its recommendations only on NSSO surveys. Because NSSO surveys are not the final figures, they are only estimates and they are done on a random sample basis. This is one criticism. No, I agree with you.
No, but there's no alternative is available. And national level data with long time period comparability and without any bias. Statistically, there could be methodological differences, but as far as fact that long time data, and for every purpose, we have always been using this and nothing else. So why crib about something to which no alternative is available, which is reasonable, which is objective?
And the criticism has been...
Criticism is always about the interpretation. For example, poverty data that comes. Nobody says that NSSO data are wrong. Nobody says that, how to interpret them, what is to give different weights to them. That is what is different.
Absolutely right. It is not taken care of exactly the states which has large number of villages or the hilly tracts. And whatever the 10 parameters are decided, it has just spread it over and taken a decision on it. Now, is that really correct?
I think, yes, that can make sense. But for example, recently I heard somebody arguing that Bihar at the moment is the only state where instead of increasing urbanization, you have decreasing urbanization and greater ruralization. The service delivery is costly and difficult in a village. Larger clusters.
But every committee, whichever was, they are always accused.
Political implications are there, and if it's like somebody saying that somebody is tall and you are giving greater importance to weight. If it is objectively so, then it's like this. You can't help. Facts are sacrosanct. So there's no point in cribbing about them.
The panel has discussed the issues of development and underdevelopment and put up a virtually roadmap for allocating funds almost on equitable basis. Absolutely hope set the roadmap for future development. Thank you, Mr. Kabra.
You were listening to a discussion on new indicators of backwardness of states. The participants were Professor Kamal Nayan Kabra, Institute of Social Sciences, and Professor Shivaji Sarkar, Economic Analyst. It came to you in the program News Analysis, produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsttalks@gmail.com.